Sometimes the most important legal lessons come from the strangest places. And today we're diving into a really weird one. It's a story about a farmer, a bunch of pigs, and a piece of faulty equipment that ended up changing how we think about contracts forever. So, the big question is, how on earth does a simple pig feeder end up making legal history? Well, it all starts with this crazy and pretty tragic chain of events. Okay, so this whole thing happened fast, and it was just devastating. Picture this. A brand new, massive, 7-ton pig feed hopper gets installed. But there's a huge mistake. The person installing it leaves the ventilator sealed shut. This traps all the moisture inside, and the pig feed gets completely moldy. The farmer, not knowing any of this, feeds it to his herd, and the result is an absolute catastrophe. 254 of his best pigs die from a rare intestinal infection. And of course, a disaster this big, it's going to end up in court. So we've got our two main players. On one side, you have the farmer, A. Parsons Livestock, who's just watched his livelihood get decimated. And on the other, you have Utley, Ingham & Co., the company that sold him the faulty hopper in the first place. So the farmer, who's just seen his business get totally wrecked, goes and sues the supplier. And listen, he wasn't just asking for the value of the pigs he lost. No, he wanted compensation for all the future profits he was going to make from those pigs. I mean, his entire operation was thrown into chaos. So the real question for the court was, who's responsible for this enormous financial mess? To figure this out, the court had to pull out a really important legal tool. It's a principle called remoteness of damage. Basically, it's the law's way of saying, hey, you can't be on the hook for every single crazy, unpredictable thing that happens because of your mistake. The damage has to be something you could have reasonably seen coming, not some total fluke. And that leads us to the absolute heart of the case, the multi-million-dollar question, really. Was it foreseeable that a sealed ventilator would lead to a rare E. coli infection that kills 254 pigs? Or was this just a tragic, one-in-a-million accident that the supplier couldn't possibly be blamed for? So the supplier's defense was actually pretty clever. They basically said, look, we'll admit it. We should have known the feed could get moldy. Fine. We'll even admit we could have guessed the pigs might get a little sick. But a fatal, rare disease? No way. We couldn't possibly have predicted that. That was a total freak accident. Now, here's how the court handled that. They didn't really care what the farmer or the supplier personally knew. Instead, they used this classic legal idea, the reasonable person. They asked, what would an ordinary, reasonable person in that situation have expected to happen when they made the deal for the hopper? It's a way to keep things fair and objective. Okay, and this is where the case gets really interesting. The court pointed out that the law actually has two different standards for what's foreseeable. For physical harm, like, sick pigs, the bar is pretty low. You just need to be able to see that some type of harm is a serious possibility. But for just losing money, a pure financial loss, the bar is way, way higher. And that one distinction, it was the whole ball game. The court looked at the situation and said, this isn't just about lost profits, not at its core. This is about physical harm to those pigs. And because of that, they decided to use that lower bar test. Was some kind of illness a serious possibility from eating moldy feed? So the court's thinking was super clear. They asked, 1, was it foreseeable that moldy feed would make pigs ill? Yeah, obviously. Any reasonable person would know that. 2, was it foreseeable it would cause this super specific, deadly E. coli infection? Probably not. And this is the absolute key, that second question didn't even matter. And the lead judge on the case, a legal legend named Lord Denning, just nailed it. He basically said, look, the only real question is whether illness was a serious possibility. You don't have to foresee the exact way things go wrong, or just how bad it's going to get. And that thinking gave birth to what we now call the Parsons Principle. And it's simple, but it's powerful. If you can foresee the type of harm is possible, then you are responsible for the full extent of that harm, even if you couldn't have possibly imagined it would get that bad. So what did this all mean for the poor farmer? Well, with that principle in place, the court held the supplier liable for, everything. The farmer got the full value for all 254 dead pigs, and he got all the profits he would have made from them in the future. The supplier was on the hook for the whole disaster. And you've got to understand, this wasn't just some random victory for one farmer. This ruling from 1978 became a massive deal in contract law. It's been used in huge product liability cases ever since, and it's still a really important precedent in countries all over the world today. It's crazy, right? This old case about some pigs has some serious lessons for anyone in business today. It tells us that you're on the hook for the kind of risk you create, not just the exact bad thing you think might happen. It's a stark reminder that the financial fallout from a small mistake can be gigantic. And it really hammers home how crucial it is to think through risks, because what you should have known can be just as important as what you actually did.
So at the end of the day, the case of the killer pig feeder is a wild reminder that even the simplest contracts can have these massive hidden dangers. And it really leaves you with one big question to think about. What unseen risks might be hiding in your own agreements?